Bonjour.
DGNT.
Oh, for fuck's sake, not again.
D-rolls, 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 D-rolls. On my wrist, bitch.
Why
On my
me?
D-rolls. Top
What did
floor
I do
pass
to
now,
you,
singing like a
dude?
hero. Superman.
Come on!
Me got me like real.
What do you want from me? Oh, you should have started with that. Okay, so where do I start here? The video editing is awesome. You're supposed to be judging his singing? I know!
What? I just broke your wrist.
Okay, so you are obviously not really singing in this. But there's actually a lot that can be said about how your voice sounds / resonates. Since you are rapping here, even if it's for comedic purposes, your voice sounds just like you usually sound when you are speaking in your videos.
But before I do that, Dan, I'm just wondering if we really need to change how it looks right now, because it does look exactly like it does in the final UI mockup.
And I'm wondering if your voice doesn't get like tired quickly if you have to speak for a long extended period of time. Because your voice always sounds like flat in this. Oh, here is why I thought that though. That's hard to say. Jesus. When we sing and talk, we're using the same mechanism, the same system. A breathing system with lungs and the diaphragm, among other things, your vocal cords, and different resonator like the nose area, the mouth, and of course,
chest.
And let me get one thing straight. There is no switch that you have to activate when you start singing. A lot of people think that way, that they need to activate something, to push a button, a specific button when they start to sing. And that's not true. There is nothing that you need to activate specifically when you start to sing. You're using the exact same mechanism as when you're talking. It's just that in your day-to-day life, you're using it unconsciously. When you start singing, you are basically using your breathing system and your vocal cord in a more athletic kind of way, depending of the genre you are singing in. And sure, it requires more flexibility and agility than when you are talking, but you are still using the exact same system and mechanism as when you are talking in your day-to-day life. It's just that in your day-to-day life, you're using it unconsciously. You're not thinking about it. It's a reflex. Because sometimes in a single song, our voice might just go through the whole range of natural capabilities that we are using every day.
Unconsciously.
I'm talking about the speaking range, the calling, yelling kind of range, which is transcribed in singing by the word belting. Fry, which is what we do when we go like... Oh no. The head voice or falsetto, depending on what you want to call it. Not everyone has the same definition, so it doesn't really matter anyway. And the mixed voice, which a lot of people are confused about, they don't know how to use it when they are singing. Ironically enough, a lot of people are actually using it in their day-to-day life when they're talking.
Unconsciously.
Hello everybody! The trouble starts when we want to use all those aspects of our voice consciously. You know how damn you sound when you go to the doctor and he starts to ask you to breathe
Deeply.
and you start to sound like you're dying. Deeply, but you're dying. Okay, Mr. French boy, now I'm gonna ask you to breathe.
Deeply.
Wait a minute, how do I fucking breathe? Why am I talking about that here, you might ask? Well, it happened that DGNT here sound like he's out of breath and his voice just doesn't resonate at all. It sounds very flat, and I know it's a parody. It was mostly for comedic purposes.
80 on my wrist, 100 on my wrist, 80 on my wrist, 100 on my wrist, 80 on my wrist, 100 on my wrist.
You sound like that when you're talking in your video, and I assume wrongly that it was because you were straining your voice all the time. A lot of people are actually not breathing correctly in the daily life for various reasons like stress, or just the lack of physical exercise, or just because they didn't like or comment or subscribe to my channel. In a very similar way that can also be related, someone who has a very inefficient way of breathing might also be using his voice quite badly in his daily life. So in this case, apparently this is not the problem. You just sound like that. Also, to be fair, lead pump vocal tone sounds quite flat in the original too. So... But I thought that it would be interesting to use this opportunity to explain what I just explained. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Anyway, I feel that I'm starting to lose your attention, so I'm just gonna rate DGNT now. It's a little flat out of 10. Next! So we've got our first a cappella singing in this series. It's from Elvis. I decided that your name is Elvis. Yes, I tend to do that. That's like my thing. What do you mean it's basic and that's funny at all? Well, to be fair, that sounds just like me. So right off the bat, Elvis asked me on Reddit what kind of rating I would give his singing between 1 and 10. And I don't know if you could tell, but that's not what we do around here.
It's getting it on. When lights close their tired eyes, I'll soon be with you, my love. Give you my dark surprise. I'll be with you, darling, soon. I'll be with you when the stars start falling.
Honestly,
It's a little bit pitchy.
I'll be with you when the stars start falling.
that part sounds really good in my opinion. Better than the rest, and I think that's because you're getting more intense in that part. You're trying to actually project your voice, and I can hear that you're starting to go out of your comfort zone. I just really like that moment. It sounds really soulful. I think the reason why it's the best part is because it sounds more intense, and very often in singing, intensity makes it easier to sing with emotions, or at least it's easier to act and sound like you're pouring emotions into your singing. Unfortunately, for the most part, I think that you are also holding your voice back. I feel like I'm repeating myself. You sound like your voice is a bit stuck in the back of your mouth and in your throat. I think that you are holding yourself and your voice back way too much on notes where you definitely shouldn't have to. On the plus side, I like the fact that you're singing a cappella. You're really taking your time, and that's great. But I also hope that you're singing along instrumentals too, because it's very useful to be able to work on your breath support, your stamina and your timing. Anyway, it's time for the... I'm gonna give this a don't even try to pressure me into rating your singing a holy
Ever again.
out of 10. So next up we have... Sophie has an original song for us.
I know it's wrong. I can still taste the instant on my tongue. I know it's wrong. I'm afraid of what you're doing to my lungs. You are the sun on my skin. You go forward, I go backwards. Where do you end and I begin? And why can't I ever quit under the indigo sky?
First of all, really cool head voice. I really enjoyed it. It's nice and controlled, and you also look like you're really into the music that you're playing. So that's good. Hi, I am that French boy from like a few days after recording that video, and I realized that there are a few things that I forgot to mention, such as you've got an amazing vocal tone. I like how you became more confident with your high note throughout the performance. You started a bit sloppy, but after some time, they started to sound amazing. You displayed a nice vocal range in that song, but I think that you need to strengthen the middle part of your vocal range, because while you were able to go high and to go quite low, there was an audible discomfort in the middle area. If I were you though, I would work more on the verses, because they were still good, but some of the lower notes were a bit pitchy, and you had the tendency to be pitchy when you had to go up in scale from those lower notes too, like here.
Boomerang in the park.
Get back to me from the past. I can definitely hear that you're also kind of going for that approximative kind of singing style on the verses, almost like you are talking at some point, and I respect the artistic choice, if that was an artistic choice. I'm also gonna ask you a question. Have you ever tried to record your own song without playing the piano at the same time? Because this is more like a live version, but it would be interesting to hear like more of a studio version where you recorded the piano and the singing separately. Overall, I enjoyed your voice, and the song is quite cool too. That's not the kind of song that I listen usually, but I liked it. You're enjoying yourself, and bonus points for that ending. You just look like... I am so done. And I love it! I'm giving this, You're a good singer! Out of 10. Next we have... Insert name here. Ooh, don't mind if I do, Karen! Yeah, that's a good name. Plus, there is absolutely nothing going on with that name online. I think you're perfectly safe. Also, apparently this show is sponsored by KineMaster. So I'm gonna rate this made with KineMaster out of 10. One can only dream. Yep, I just checked. I'm still poor.
Make a cup of joy. Make the twist a cup of John. I like it really good for you, Jack, 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 Jack. Hey, Mr. Business, how do you do? Make it double for you. And I'll bring it right up.
First of all, I love the artwork for the video. It's just the awkward welcome to my singing vibe that gets me. But about the singing, you're rushing. I don't know the original, but since you're singing a cappella, take your fucking time.
Breathe.
No shit, it's a short one. It just feels like your voice is a bit stuck in your mouth, you know? And you're having some trouble to enunciate those words clearly, because I'm guessing that there might be some jaws facial tension, because like almost everyone else in this show, including the first video, you're holding your voice back. But there is an interesting part at the end of your sample though, where you are showing that you actually understand the basics of vocal projection.
Hey, Mr. Business, how do you do?
We can hear you starting to project your voice in front of you using your diaphragm, and not just pushing and supporting those notes with your throat muscles. So that's a start. That's a start. That sounds like a classic vocal warm-up slash exercise. Maybe try to go higher by letting your voice crack into head voice falsetto. Instead of stopping and locking your voice down and let it crack! Let it crack! I would like to hear you sing this song again, like in a couple of months, over the instrumental this time. Because it kinda sounds like you're not taking yourself very seriously, which can be a quality, sure, but also a default. Because if you're never giving it your best shot because of that attitude, you're never really gonna improve. Okay, on to the rating now. I'm gonna give this... that sounded a bit random, but actually not bad. Out of 10. Next we have... Alex.
It's got a different height they see from. They sympathize and they'll compromise, yeah. You look around and you'll come to find your dreams gone. But I like my life design to be all mine. I need 'em, all minds and seasons. And one thing I know for sure, that a gold mine and you're pure.
Alex was very insecure about her singing, and it shows in the fact that she's singing very lightly, and you were a bit pitchy too when you wanted to go high, because I feel like to avoid making too much noise, you had to go for a breathy tone in the high register. And considering how solid and actually kind of groovy your lower and mid register are.
Try to find me a better way and ease on, 'cause life is a mound of clay. to be rolled out and in shame. Sometimes things break.
It really sounded like you back down on those notes, on those high notes. It often sounds like you're not really reaching those notes and you're just quickly moving on to the next notes, because that's the easy way.
The co-op way.
On the plus side, your lower mid-register is really solid. You need to relax your voice a bit more to allow it to resonate in your mouth. You don't want to push it in your throat. Try to add like a bit of a breathy tone in those low notes to make them sound more relaxed and more pleasant. This was actually very cool to listen to. You also have a very nice tone and you're mostly on pitch and you didn't rush. You are not rushing. You took your time and I like that attitude. I think you just really need to believe in yourself. It's rating time. I'm gonna rate this in yourself out of 10. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this second episode of I Rate Your Singing. If you haven't watched the first episode, click here to watch it. And if you want to see or hear more from me, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe
To feed my social validation's needs.